what is it that you do to sell my home, right? That's a pretty common one that comes up. Let me see what we have going on here. I'm coming to you guys live from my iPhone. So a pretty common one that comes up is, you know, what is it that you do different to get my home sold? Now, there's a few different things that you guys have to look at this, guys, is the stage in where you're actually going, where the prospect is going to be, hold on. The stage of where the prospect is, you respond to their objection or their question. Now, hear me out. If you're doing a cold prospect, the conversation that you have with them is going to be much different than a warm prospect. So if you go down the timeline of the consumer's journey is what I call it, right? You have a lead, and then you have follow-up, you have nurturing, and then you have an appointment, which an appointment is, and then you convert them into a client. So that's the process. So this objection that comes up on what is it that you do different than other agents is going to be very different between whether or not you're having a cold outreach, an initial conversation, or if you're sitting at the kitchen table, right? Two different ways to respond to this. So let's start with the objection handler, or the objection handler if you're prospecting. So if you're on the phone, if you're on a cold outreach, if you're calling an expired listing, if you're calling for a sell by owner, heck, if you're talking to anybody, what is it that you're going to do different than what any other agent is? So here's what I would do. Here's what I recommend. Number one is you have to acknowledge what they say. Okay. Hey, Mr. Seller, that is an absolute great question. A lot of homeowners are concerned about, you know, what agents do differently to sell properties. Now, guys, this is actually really important. You see, this is how you get the higher commissions on your listings. If you have a seller that is meeting with, say, 3 different real estate agents, and the services that they provide are pretty much the same, right? Agent A, vanilla. Agent B, vanilla. Agent C, vanilla. You know, agent A 6%, agent B is 5.5%, agent C is 4%, right? But yet it's all vanilla. So the more value is going to come to the vanilla agent that charges a lower price. So it's really important that you answer this, and it's a fair question on behalf of the consumer to ask you, what is it that you're going to provide differently? Because that is what's going to separate you from either getting the listing or not getting the listing, or it's going to separate you on the value, the overall value and the commission that you can charge for that, right? So Brett, what is it that you do different than any other agent to get a home sold? You know, Mr. Seller, that's a really great question. A lot of consumers, a lot of homeowners are very interested in the separation. Okay, now here's where it goes into it. So what I'd like to do is, it's impossible for me to share that with you in the next 30 to 60 seconds. Would you be open to meeting with me sometime this week for maybe 20, 30 minutes so I can show you my 22-point plan that sold over 1,000 homes across X amount of years and X amount of area? Would you be open to doing that? Right? Now look what I did, guys. I acknowledge what they were saying. In fact, I made them right because I said most homeowners are concerned. Right now, we're having a one-on-one conversation, but most homeowners are concerned about what their agents are going to do to get their home sold, right? So you acknowledge and you made them right, you made them feel good. Now, here's what I'd like to do. It's impossible for me to share with you exactly what I do in a 30 to 60-minute phone call. So would you be open to meeting with me sometime this week? I'm not going for the hard close, right? I'm going halfway. If they're not going, if I go in for a hard close, great. Hey, you know, that's a really great question. When can I show you? Monday at 1 o'clock or Thursday at 2 o'clock, right? Come on, guys, think about this. When was the last time that worked on you? So I want to have a conversation with somebody. I want to have a professional conversation with somebody. And the way that I do that is I acknowledge what they say. I let them know that they're not alone in actually thinking about that and making that right. And then I'm saying, hey, it's impossible for me to share that with you for 30 to 60 seconds. Would you be open to, not when would be a better time? Would you be, this is like going halfway. Would you be open to meeting with me sometime this week for just, you know, 30, 40 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is for you guys. where I could share with you, and this is where I'm really going to start talking and kind of give them insight, my 22-point home selling plan. Yours might be 24 points, yours might be 30 points, might be 2 points, whatever. But my 22-point home selling plan that has successfully closed over, 300 homes in this immediate market. Would you be open to doing that? Now you have to wait for them to answer. Okay, now you have to wait for them to answer. Now, what kind of answer? Now, if they have the time, if they have the rapport, they're going to say, yeah, I have some time here. Yeah, I'd be open to doing that. Great. Would you prefer to do that in person? Or I'd prefer to do that in person, but due to safety, what about Zoom, right? Give them the option. Maybe not yet, but if they say, yes, I'd be willing to meet with you. Okay, so I'm looking at my calendar here, and I could come out to your home. Looks like I could do it on Wednesday at 3 o'clock, or perhaps maybe Thursday at 1 o'clock. Do either of those times work for you? Not which of those times would work best for you, right? I'm saying the same things. It's the same technique. The difference is I'm being a Jedi. I'm being a ninja. I'm talking to you guys very conversational, very professional. We're accomplishing the same tactics as the hard tactics. It's very soft though. It's very subtle. It's very circular. It's going around it. We're not just going head on. We're not being the Tasmanian devil when we're actually crushing through these questions and objections. That's what I refer to as salesy. Okay. And typically you have to do a lot more conversations in order to be salesy. But then they'll say, yeah, you know what? Sure. 1 o'clock on Thursday would be great. Terrific. Okay. Now here comes into the next rebuttal. So let's kind of switch gears. That's how you would respond to it on a colder prospect, setting the appointment. Okay, actually, let me back up. That is what I call an objection going one level deep. Hey, Brett, what is it that you do to get homes sold? That's the first level of objections. Okay, I respond to it by giving very little information that says, I'd love to share with you. Do you have 30, 40 minutes? So what if somebody says, I'm not ready to really make a commitment right now until I know a little bit more about what you do. I totally get it. You want to have a little bit more information before you make a decision to invest, 30, 40 minutes of time to determine if I'm the right person to sell your home, right? They're going to say, right. Okay, terrific. So what I typically do, and what I do on all listings with my sellers, and I've sold a lot of them, is before I come out, I have a 20-page packet of information that I'm going to send to you. Now in that packet, not only is it going to outline my 22-point awesome sales system that has helped over 100 homeowners sell their home in your immediate area, but it's also going to give you market information, comparative information on what homes are selling for and what they're sold for. And it's also going to provide you with a range of what the low end of the property is going to go for and what the high end given the market. And then when I see your property, we can actually kind of identify together what the value is. Now, if I was going to be able to get that out to you, say tomorrow or the next day, do you think that you would have maybe 15 or 20 minutes to review that if we were to set an appointment sometime this week? Would you be able to do that? Well, yes. Now, guys, remember, one of the fundamentals that I promote is that the person who asks the questions always, always, always will control the conversation. Okay? So no matter what they say, I'm going to respond to it very conversationally, very professionally, but I promise you there's going to be a question that ties into that probes a little bit more. Now, this is a telephone call, right? So the goal is to get an appointment, but it's not just to get an appointment. It's actually an appointment that someone's going to show up to and that you actually can have a conversation. A lot of times when I, looking back on my sales career, when I was that hard salesman, people would actually make an appointment with me just to make an appointment with me because they knew that they were either going to have to make an appointment with me or hang up on me. And a lot of people, they're not just going to be so blatant and just hang up on people. So they're just going to give the appointment and just not show up, right? It's kind of it's a safer way to go. So that's what you do, what I call 2 levels deep. So someone hits you with an objection, you respond to it confidently with clarity, and then 90% of the time that usually suffices, but sometimes they will go a little bit deeper on that objection, which I call level 2. And level 1, you get very general information. You ask them if it's okay, you know, why you're giving general information and you'd like to meet with them. If they go a level deeper, you've got to give a little bit more information. Just like what I said, you know, I have my 22 point awesome home sale program that sold X amount of homes over such and such. And then if they went even a level deeper, that's where you just got to just be point blank. That's where you go very driver mentality. Because here's what's happening, and this happens to you, and this happens to me. I'm only going to let you, from a subconscious point, we're just having a conversation. But the more and more time that I reframe the information I'm providing, you know, I just keep on the ABCs. I'm just always closing on them for an appointment. I'm never giving them anything of substance. The more I do with that, the more I'm losing rapport with them. Think about it when that happened to you, right? Think about a time when you were actually talking to somebody and you're asking questions, they're not really answering them, and all they're doing is just trying to hammer you down with an appointment. This actually happened to me like last week. I think I might have shared this with you. I got cold called. I always have vendors. I actually had somebody who, I still don't know who it was, reach out to me, call me. I normally don't answer the phone in my office because usually anyone of substance or anyone of importance in my organizational life, they call me on my cell phone. So when someone randomly calls me on the office phone, you know, sales call, I'm just like the consumer. You guys are just like the consumer. So if we know how we would react, it's safe to say that the other person would react that same way, right? To a certain level, because your personality goes into it. So, but now let's kind of transition this. Let's transition to this. If you get the appointment, right? You handle the objections. They're content with it. You schedule the appointment. Now, here's where a lot of agents that I see make the mistake. You've got to have a pre-listing packet. Now, not the pre-listing packet that just gives you, you know, the foo-foo, the general stuff, you know, number one, you know, your brand is number one, you know, it gives you an encyclopedia section on information. The pre-meeting packet is solely meant to help you in the process of your presentation. And so a pre-meeting packet should have all the information in on it. Look, we know what the common objections are. We know that you're going to be going into a listing presentation, and we know that they're going to be asking you what you do. Okay, what you do goes in the pre-listing packet. We know that they're going to be asking you what your commission rate is. Okay, so you need to break down your commission rate into this. I know a lot of people, you're freaking out right now. Should I do this? Yes, and I'll explain here in a second. You know that they're going to ask you, what is their property worth, right? Put the CRM in there. You know that they're going to ask you about your experience. Put your resume in there, right? Everything that you put in there should not be fluff. You know, if you want them to know what's going on in the market, if you want to know, then you need to not just do a CRM, you need to make sure that you put in some information that they can digest. Look, there's a point in time, guys, on the consumer journey. There's a point in time, this is true for you, this is true for me, this is true for everyone. This is true whether you're buying a house, selling a house, getting a mortgage, buying shoes, going to a restaurant. The consumer journey is the same in 2020. The way that works is that there's a point in time that you're willing to have a conversation and make a decision with somebody. But then there's a point in time before that, could be days, weeks, months, years, where you're going to think about it. And that in period time is discovery. And in discovery in 2020, it's much easier. That's why Google is one of the largest companies on planet Earth, is because you and I, when we have a question, when we want to search something, we can type in a subject. What normally took me growing up 2 weeks to go to 10 different libraries takes a fraction of a second to give me 10 different references of information, right? We consume information. We don't make decisions until we have a level of comfort about the situation. This is the same thing. So your pre-meeting packet needs to have all the information in there to hit the common objections to that point. Well, Brett, what would happen if they're going to cancel the appointment on me? Look, guys, that's possible. That's extremely possible. And you're going to have to refine your objection handling skills or the skills you need to pre-frame a conversation in order to do that. Now, what do I mean by that? Look, if you know that you're going to be sending over a compensation, if you know that you're going to be sending over a pre-listing packet, you know exactly what's in there. And you also know the objections that you want to handle. Now, you also know, if you've done one or two of these, or just talk to one of the veteran agents, or just, watch the past videos, what are the common objections would come from your pre-listing packet? And then you need to pre-frame with that. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to send you over a pre-meeting packet. One of the things it's going to do, not only is it going to break down my 22-point awesome sales plan that sells over 100 houses a year, it's going to give you the breakdown of the compensation structure that me and my office do. Now, what I want to do is make sure that you have a chance to review that and then allocate some time when we meet in person so we can talk in detail on how that breaks down when we meet in person. Would that be okay to you? Yeah, Brett, that would be fine. Now, what I did is I planted an egg. I planted an egg so that when they actually get the pre-meeting packet and they look at that, they've already agreed that we're going to talk about it in detail in person. Now, you guys should be doing this when you're talking to your clients about inspections and such. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we have an inspection period on this. Well, if the inspector comes up with some issues, here's what perhaps could happen, and this is the way that they're going to structure it. Now, if it doesn't happen, that's awesome. If you don't have to deal with those things, it's awesome. But because you pre-framed a potential issue, not only are you the professional that's actually, providing the information that they need, that's what they hired you for, but you're pre-framing a conversation. It's better to actually hit this up front, and it softens the blow. Because if inspection issues do come up, if the commission issue does come up on a listing appointment, now you've actually already addressed it. And so there's a different level of rapport that you're going to have with them, instead of just coming at them sideways, right? Kind of just, surprising them with this. Now, kind of going back into how you handle this at the appointment, at going for the signature. Or Brett, what is it that you do differently that's from other agents? Okay, guys, this is what I'm talking about pre-framing. Well, Mr. Seller, that's a really great question. Now, I see that you got the package that I sent you. Yes, I did. Okay, did you have a chance to review all of it in detail? Well, yes, I did. Okay, did you review my 26, point plan of awesomeness? Yes, I did. Okay, do you have any questions about, okay, perfect, you did. So you can see that I have a very in-depth marketing plan, and not only is it very in-depth, but I have a proven track record with this plan that has sold over 100 homes in your immediate area, in the XYZ period, okay? Do you have any questions about what I do, right? Well, no, I really don't. Okay, can you see the contrast of how I get homes sold versus how a general agent gets homes sold? Well, what do you mean? Well, have you met with any other agents? So if you do this right, you are the listing process, the buyer process, the sales process, doesn't matter if it's a house or anything else. The reason why they call it a process is because they call it a process. And the reason why you need to practice it, the reason why I founded this role play group, is so that you can practice it, because there's no one else practicing it. I think everybody in this group has had a time where you're like all gung-ho with a partner and they're like, yeah, let's show up, let's do this. And then all of a sudden you show up and they didn't, because something came up, right? Maybe they had to take their kid to school. Look, they probably knew they had to take their kid to school the other day, right? People make time for things that are important. And if they didn't show up on you, that just means that whatever they were doing was more important than actually fulfilling their obligation with you. It sucks. It's just how life is, right? Going back to that subject is, don't get frustrated when you're talking to these people on the phone. The colder the contact, the less important you are, right? They don't know you from Adam. I was role playing with some people yesterday and they were horrible. Whenever you're actually doing any kind of communication, you've got to answer two questions when you're calling on someone. You've got to let them know who you are and why you're calling before you can move on to anything, right? Has there ever been a time, and this happened to me, this actually happened to me on this cold call, I answered hello, and then all of a sudden I was stuck on this call. The guy just kept on throwing up information on me and talking to me about stuff I had no idea what he was calling me for. I even asked him why he's calling me. I'm like, look, I don't understand. What is it that you're actually calling me for? Oh, that's really a great question. We help people do this, that, and the other, and we're doing this, that, and the other. Yeah. That's cool. But what are you calling me for? Oh, yo, that's a great question. You know, we're doing this and we're doing this, and could you meet for 15 minutes at 1 o'clock on Wednesday? Dude, what are you calling me for? Right? Whenever you guys get a phone call, whenever I get a phone call, especially in an unidentified number, the first thing that goes to your head, who the heck is calling me? Right? Most of the time, 2 out of 3 times, you're going to be sent to voicemail. But that that 33% time someone's going to answer the phone. But the question that they have is, number one, what are who's calling me? So you've got to talk about that. And then number two is you got to tell them what you're calling for. Otherwise, you're just going to confuse them. And this is what a lot of people don't practice. You're just going to throw up information on them, and they're just wondering, like, what the heck is this person calling me for? Number one, I only know your name. I don't know where you're from. I don't know you. Why are you calling me? Right? That happens in every conversation. So you need to make sure that you know that when you're calling someone, whether you know some or not, who is it? What do they want? Now, if you're in their caller ID, they already know who it is. Now you just need to tell them what you want, right? And then kind of move on from there. Okay, so what do we got on time here? I'm doing a pretty good time. So guys, for those of you guys that are showing up now and they're on here, I appreciate you guys coming on. I'm doing kind of a remote session from my phone. My little girl went back to in-person school today. I didn't allow enough time that I would normally do. So this is not going live on Facebook. So it is being recorded. For any of you that kind of showed up late, hit me out and I'll make sure that you guys get the link. All right, guys, that's what I have for today. For those of you that showed up live, it looks like we had a good amount of people showing up. I appreciate the time that you guys take out of your day. As always, I'll get this recording up into the private Facebook group so that you guys have it. And if you make sure, if you guys are in the role play group, that you get signed up for next week. Sign-ups close tomorrow at 7. So with that, I hope you guys have an awesome and productive day, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.